Hello, hello, and welcome to Honey Badger Radio number 78. Oh God, this title. The festival. Oh.
Be a man, Allison. Just fucking grow up hair.
Oh,
The
God.
festival.
The festival. The festivus.
Yeah,
the festivity.
Well, it's the holiday for the rest of us.
Oh, God. Jesus Christ. The reason why I'm
Get on this
is
Festivus poll.
Yeah, and the feats of strength. The feats of strength.
The feats of... Okay, well, the reason why I'm groaning is because, unlike any other kind of festival, this is actually not the celebration of something. It's the denigration of something. It's celebrating how men are bad and responsible for everything by a woman who says she loves you, and
it's celebrating how they could be good in the future, which says nothing about how good they are. It doesn't necessarily follow that means men are bad in the here and now. We're just saying we'd like them to be even better in the future.
I just want to say that I received a email confirmation that I was going to get delivery of my silver play button from YouTube today, and some man obviously was not doing his job at UPS, and so it did not get delivered. Just saying, that is one of the reasons why the patriarchy is evil and wrong.
okay, because you personally were negatively affected. That makes perfect sense.
I personally was negatively affected. They led me on. They took advantage of me. Then they disappointed me. I don't have a silver play button. And
You're disappointed. Okay, well, in the beginning, before we did the show, we started the show, we were talking about how this festival sort of resembles the idea, because it has this idea that men could be better, or men, if they just changed, if they just prayed the gay away, if they just accepted God into their lives and realized that his plan was, if they just accepted feminism into their lives and realized that feminism's plan for them was so much more
away.
Yeah, if they prayed the patriarchy away, they would just be better people. I pointed out that there's such a similarity between this idea that men's identity should be controlled by these other people, this outside force that's going to make them better men, and the gay identity, the gay male identity, being judged by Christian conservatives or fundamentalist Christian conservatives. And them bringing them into these festivals of getting over your gayness, festivals of not necessarily being a man, but becoming a better man that is entirely defined by what we want from you,
Hannah,
like marrying and having children.
Hannah, what is this? What is this blasphemy you are posting in the private chat? Last place I worked, the UPS delivery person was a woman. In fact, I've seen a few UPS delivery women.
Yeah. She was the one at the last place that I worked was taller than me, and I don't know for people that have met me, I'm about 5'9". She was taller than me, and very strong. But I've actually seen a few UPS deliveries, so it very well could be.
All right,
it's a woman's fault. It could be that it's a woman's fault that your button was not delivered.
Okay. Internalized misogyny.
One later woman that I knew, and she used to wear shorts even in December and February. And much like my 14-year-old who wore shorts to school today, was -7 wind chill, -13 Celsius. Right, and he was wearing shorts, and I was just like, every time I drop him off at school, I'm like, just make sure they know that you own pants, that I have bought you pants, and you refuse to wear them.
Okay.
Well, the thing is, obviously, these women have toxic masculinity, right?
No, they have internalized misogyny.
Oh, internalized misogyny. Yes, soggy. Well, there's where they wear the shorts because soggy knees, and it's very uncomfortable to have soggy knees with pants.
All right,
Hey, it's internalized patriarchy.
Okay, I know
So
that
if you have soggy knees, take your pants off.
Okay, I know that we really desperately want to put this into the reads, but I'm going to pull this back to the Man Festival, and the idea.
Nobody wants to talk about it. We just
where there are no pants at the Man Festival.
Yes, there were pants at the Man Festival. Okay, Brian.
Yes, I'm driving. So there were pants at the Man Festival, but as I understand, they were all actually
It was no man's festival. If there were pants, it was not a festival celebrating men.
Well, no, I mean there were pants, but all the pants were made out of male pubic hair, so they were actually quite shaggy.
Oh,
so there you go.
All right.
We're all around our ankles because we were presenting our wieners. Wieners out for Harambe.
Okay, but you realize now that Trey and Matt, or whatever the fuck their names are, they have, at least what I've seen, Butters has disavowed his wieners out, his men's rights approach, and seen the light or some shit.
No, now he's going his own way. Yesterday's episode, Butters appears to be a boy going his own way.
Big Tao.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, fair enough. But
all right,
he's a big town.
I know everybody here wants to make this a show going its own way, but let's.
No, please do talk about anything but the festival. I've got nothing else to say about it. It took me all week just to put one day's worth of video together.
Okay, well let's actually take some snippets from this video.
Right. So I got some sound bits. So yeah, let's listen to the first one. You guys are all in a room and you can see the Mike with the pause face. Sorry, Mike.
Yes.
Okay.
I see Mike waiting to receive something.
Yeah, he's about to give us something.
29.97 pause faces every second, and they're all hideous.
All right, let's go on. Nice handlebar mustache, by the way.
I would call that the Lemmy.
The Lemmy.
The Lemmy. Yes, after the guy from.
Jailbeat, and I just can't wait.
Oh, it's so bad. It's so bad, Karen. I just listened to like 3 Motorhead songs last night, and he sounds like he has lung cancer. Dude, stop singing. Please stop.
Well,
you don't sound healthy. My God.
Well,
yeah, no,
Anna,
he actually doesn't sound like he has lung cancer. He sounds like he has throat cancer.
Throat cancer, whatever he died of.
Don't worry about that, because he won't be singing for us anymore. So let us move on.
But we love the infidels.
I'm sure you would know.
I'm not receiving any sound. Is anyone else having that issue?
Do you not have volume turned on?
Oh yes, I have muted it. Okay, sorry.
That would explain it. Okay,
right.
And besides, you don't need to. The audio is kind of bad. That's why Mike put in the subtitles. So.
Okay, so we should probably read the subtitle. I'm sure you would know that as a feminist, my main point in founding being a man is to acknowledge that we love men. Oh, and you know what? What's this woman's name again?
I don't know.
Jude Kelly.
Jude Kelly. I want to tell you something, Jude Kelly. There's something I really love. I really fucking love pork. Or pigs. But mostly pork. The taste of bacon, it's just like, I love bacon. Pigs
are easy. Pigs are pretty easy to get along with too, right? Like they kind of, they're affectionate and they're nice and they're gentle and they, stay essentially where you put them and they don't jump out of the pen and then they're very tasty once you put them through a grinder or cut their heads off and cure them and stuff.
I'm just wondering if this individual, Judy, was it? If she also loves pigs. In the same way that we love pigs. Processed, after they've been processed into a tasty food item.
Even before they've been processed, they're not that much trouble. They're cute and, they got the little snubby nose and they got the cute ears and stuff and the little eyelashes. And then they're pink, and they're pretty adorable. And then you kill them and put them through a bunch of machines and and processes, and then you eat them, and they're excellent.
I think it's a little bit closer to. Oh, I love animals. I love dogs and I love cats, but I hate my neighbor's dog and my neighbor's cat. They're noisy and they shit everywhere, and I want to shoot them in the face.
Well,
They like the idea of men, not the reality of men.
Okay, guys.
Hannah,
Hannah's been waiting, so go ahead.
be-
Hannah.
It's kind of past.
Oh, all right,
point.
all right.
All right, let's go on. There's definitely going to be a lot to comment on. So
We
okay.
have men who are fathers to us, we have men who are brothers to us, we have men who are sons to
Yeah,
us,
that sound
men
is
who are
bad.
brothers to us.
It's going to be very
We love
difficult
men.
for people listening at home to figure out what's being said. So we probably should.
well, they
give
can
the-
read the. I'm showing them the video, so they can see the subtitles too.
Yeah, but we also send this out as like a podcast. Although this one
Okay,
is
so
total
we
shit,
have
but-
men who are fathers to us. We have men who are brothers to us. We have men who are husbands to us. We have men who are sons to us. We love men.
Yeah,
All right.
It's the we
We
love
the men
we love
we
men.
know.
Before
We love men like we love pigs.
Yeah, before we
Process.
get started on this man-hating tirade and blame you guys for everything, let me just establish that I actually don't dislike you as much as you think. So
In
that's
other words,
basically
what
what
they're
this is.
saying is they love men for the roles that men play in their lives,
Well,
not
okay.
just for being men.
I can give them that. I can understand that, and I can grant them that. Okay, you know, like Kathy Brennan, the owner of Rad Femme Hub, said, "Of course I don't hate men. I have a father, I have a brother, I have a son. Of course I don't hate men." And the SPLC took her word for it, and that was that, right? And all the talk of chemically castrating men by tainting the water supply, or physically castrating them, or throwing young boys through windows, or skinning men alive and rendering their body parts down for glue and leather. You know, all of that stuff that was happening on her website, you know, that was just, of course she didn't hate men because she has a son who I'm very worried for.
I want to compare this also to something that goes around, and the picture that usually gets used for it makes it even funnier. There's a thing that goes around social media. Women post it all the time, where they say things like, "If you can't accept me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best," which is probably one of the stupidest things that women ever says.
Yeah.
Did she actually say it? Because I don't know if it's a real Marilyn Monroe quote or
They
if it's just
attribute-
consistently associated with and attributed to Marilyn
They
Monroe.
attribute it to her, and yeah. So.
Well, that's the funniest part, because Marilyn Monroe was a fucking train wreck. Like, there was no at her best. She was at her best, she was still a fucking train wreck.
It was a hot mess. Yeah.
Yeah, there was never anything genuinely admirable about Marilyn Monroe. She was very pretty, but pretty doesn't really make you admirable. It's just a superficial thing. And this is what women say about themselves as a group. And I mean, a lot of women are smart enough to call other women on saying something that's stupid. So it's not like, I'm not saying that all women are this stupid. You know, for the feminist listeners who
Walt.
like to quote mine, but this is a stupid woman thing, and feminists will put this forth that women should be accepted, that all things about women should be accepted, that nothing is dysfunctional, even when it is dysfunctional, and then they'll turn around and act like the only thing that needs to be accepted about men is when men do things that benefit other people. And if men have problems, if men are dysfunctional, if men have any kind of need or have any kind of anything about them that is inconvenient for the women in their lives, that doesn't have to be accepted. That's got to be fixed. And it's very hypocritical. Very, very hypocritical.
Well, I mean, think about what we got hit with as us, quote unquote, women haters. Well, we don't talk about euthanizing women or taking away their identity or castrating them, or I guess spaying them. We don't talk about throwing little girls through pane windows. We don't talk about skinning them alive or aborting them. And yet we get, although the SPLC supposedly backed away from it, we're the ones who are called a hate group. It's amazing. It's fucking amazing.
Well, of course we are, but that's essentially because men are seen as dangerous, and women, no matter how hostile they are, how angry they are, how well armed they are, all of that, it's not. People just don't take them as seriously in terms of their ability to do harm. That's just essentially what it is. Oh my god, dog!
Okay, so basically what we're watching is the Be a Man feminist festival celebrating what men could be if only they would allow God into their lives and turn from sinners to goddess into their lives and become righteous people by protecting and providing liberty for women. Okay, Brian, next item.
All right.
Well, I just wanted to say, it's not as though they're being converted. It's not as though these are sinners coming to the festival to learn how to be with God. They're already with God. It's already a given for most of them. They already believe in.
Yeah, but they are sinners, Mike.
Yeah, they continually have to repent for the sins that they commit every day.
Well, but the thing about that, Allison, is that you cannot be a sinner until you acknowledge God and sin. This was the whole thing with Eden, was that they had not eaten of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and as so long as they did not know of good and evil, they were not capable of sin, no matter what they did. No matter what they did, so long as they did not know what they were doing, did not know the moral implications of it, they were innocent of wrongdoing, right? But the moment that they have been told that there is such a thing as morality, that there is such a thing as sin, and then they continue to sin, then they become sinners. That is why there's purgatory. That is why there's limbo. The child who dies pre-verbal, before he learns how to use language, before he ever confesses his sins, even though he may have sinned in his heart, he is not condemned to hell because he did not know and could not speak, right? But these men, they only become sinners once they have accepted the way.
Well, I would argue that feminists think everyone who doesn't accept the way is a sinner. Every man is perpetuating the patriarchy unless he becomes feminist and gets, I guess, the demons absolved from him.
No, this is the really horrible thing about it. Is that as long as you are just part of the patriarchy, and as long as you are just doing your thing, doing your patriarchal thing without any knowledge that what you are doing is evil, without any knowledge of sin, it is once you have considered their perspective that you become. This is really because don't they reserve their greatest shaming for the men who have considered their position?
You mean considered their position and rejected the feminist framework?
Considered the feminist position and accepted the feminist frame. Don't they reserve their greatest shaming?
Well, only because I think those men tolerate it.
Yeah.
Hashtag dear feminist.
Isn't that weird how that works?
Hashtag dear feminist men was specifically for doing that. Dear feminist men, you don't deserve a cookie just for knowing your sin and trying to expunge yourself, or trying to eliminate it from yourself. You're still bad.
I just find it remarkable that this woman says she loves men, but only insofar as she completely and utterly defines them
And controls them.
And controls them. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay,
But
Brian.
all of the men who don't know about the sin of being men, then they apparently have to spend all eternity dancing under a bar suspended on 2 poles because they're stuck in limbo.
Oh, get it.
I just-
got it.
Quick moment about the love thing. It just kind of reminds me of this whole what we've been talking about. Basically, just to explain it to or put it simply for others. What you see a lot of times, specifically from less mature people, or from women of a certain age, or generally from people of a certain age, but more often I see it in women or in girls. You have an attitude of I love it like a possession. I want it. I like it. It's my doggy. It's my car. It's my possession. I love it like a thing. When you love a person, you account for their foibles and for their mistakes or for anything uncomfortable to you. That's what love is. Sacrificing your happiness for someone else's. That means taking on someone's burden or their annoyance or whatever it is that you don't like about them. That's not perfect. That's not like a pet that you can shut up or put in a room and lock it. That's the difference between love and possession and love and desire. So we have people say, I love men. Yeah, just like piggies, just like little pets that you have, not true love. And I think that is the biggest thing that matters to talk about here, where that word love, they say it, but they mean a very specific, singular possession sort of love. And you guys touched upon that with a lot now, but I just wanted to kind of condense it and put it into its own topic.
I don't. You use the word love. I don't think you know what it means. Okay, Brian.
Okay. Let me just make sure we're on the right part. Yeah, here we go.
Hold on. Don't look now. But we've got gnomes.
That was just for the lulls.
Okay, the gnomes are back, right?
Let me go to the next real clip. Sorry, guys. I was making.
Yes, I understand. It was for the lulls. I'm just hoping that this is being heard by the people who are watching.
I wasn't taught.
No, they can hear it because my volume's pretty good on this end. You guys can hear this, right? In the chat, let me know.
About
men?
What about the gnomes?
What about the gnomes?
What about them?
What the hell's wrong with your mouth?
Oh, you're mocking me, Mike.
How to?
I would never. Well, I never.
Okay. Now, every time we get to the good bit, you guys start talking. All right, here we go.
What the hell's wrong with your mouth?
I wasn't taught how to be a man. I don't know whether you can be taught how to be a man.
Yeah. So, who is this guy that's on the stage?
His name's Ashley Williams, or Asher D, I believe is his gangster rap name there. He was in a group called So Solid Crew, and he went on to become a sort of mainstream actor.
Okay.
Like that.
So was he raised without a father?
Well, we're getting to that.
He's raised with a dodgy father. Apparently, we only get one side of the story, and you never know. There's the kind of the point I made.
Yeah, that's a good point, because a lot of women who engage in custody interference also tell their children that the father doesn't want to see them. And this is something that I've seen in numerous households around me, where the dad is trying to see the kids and trying to be there for the kids, and then the mom interferes, doesn't give him the opportunity, takes the kids other places on his visitation day so that he can't find them, things like that, and then says, well, your father doesn't want to be around you. So it's difficult to trust when a guy says, my dad didn't want to be there, whether he actually experienced that or whether it was something that his mother told him, when in fact it wasn't true.
Indeed.
And I'm not saying that never happens, because there are men who didn't want to be dads and they end up with children because the mother makes that decision. And there are assholes. There are assholes of both sexes.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that in every case, when somebody says a father abandoned his children that we should automatically believe that, because there are times when the mother lies about it.
Agreed. Absolutely. I've seen it more times. I've seen both, right? Where a man has essentially said, yeah, no, I don't want anything to do with this kid. And I have also seen situations where the man was doing everything in his power to maintain a relationship with the children, and just the mother put roadblocks in his way every step of the way, every single chance she got. And in both cases, the mother was essentially saying, hey, your dad doesn't want to see you. And sometimes it's true, sometimes it's not. So
Generally speaking, when people are assholes to children, they don't want to take responsibility, and they're going to blame the other parent.
Okay, it's a festival, essentially it's a festival for defining men, for feminist defining men. It's a festival to celebrate the feminist definition of manhood. So that's astounding.
It is. Do you think that there would ever be a festival where a bunch of men got together and they said this is how to woman properly and call it Be a Woman? That would never ever happen.
well, but
Ever.
I wouldn't characterize this festival as a bunch of women getting together and saying this is how to man properly. A lot of the speakers
Are men.
right?
I mean
But
feminists, but yeah.
they're feminists, but they're men. We have to actually allow that and allow for that. I mean, otherwise, who's to say that we aren't, the women of Honey Badger Radio aren't a bunch of men defining how women are supposed to properly woman.
I'm not parsing that sentence. So we're a bunch of men defining how women should properly women?
But most of the speakers at this festival, most of the people involved in this festival are men, right?
Mhm.
And yes, they are feminist men.
Yeah, I didn't say women defining men. I said
Right,
feminism
and-
is the definition of men.
So so we honey badgers are women, but we look at things from a male perspective.
Well, and also a female perspective that doesn't
Yes,
buy into
but
the
we-
reduction of victimhood.
yeah, yes, but we look at things through a certain lens in a certain way, right? And so, who's to say if we say that this is just a bunch of women telling men how to man properly, right?
No, that's not what I said. I said it's feminists. This is a festival celebrating the feminist definition of what it is to be a man.
Yes, I can definitely agree with that. But
Yeah, I didn't say it was it was a festival.
somebody said something about a bunch of women.
Well, I mean, every panel has a woman on it, and I'm sure that the men would not present a definition of manhood that was unacceptable to the feminist women present. So it's, and I mean, point taken. You might also consider us to be presenting an ideal of, I think, not just manhood, but also female womanhood. But I don't think that we really differ in the standards that we'd hold men or women to.
Well, I want to point something else out as well. Women do control the dialogue in feminism. And I'm going to go right back to Dear Feminist Men, hashtag Dear Feminist Men. The idea that men should step back and let women control the dialogue is a big factor in feminism. And it is something that is reiterated frequently because, of course, women feel like, at least feminist women feel like anytime there is disagreement between feminist women and feminist men on how to man right, or what is or is not a right, and what women do or do not experience, and so on. That they're being silenced if someone has an opinion that isn't the same as their opinion, and so there is that within feminism where in the men's rights movement. We have disagreement, and we have, we get into arguments, and we even have some very heated arguments and heated discussions. But there isn't anybody, for instance, telling us to step back as women and only let the men talk, or that if we have a disagreement with a man, that because he's a man he must be right and we must be wrong. Nobody's actually written to us and said you can't talk because you're women, because you're not the gender that this movement is here to support. In fact, quite a bit of what is considered standard for the movement as far as arguments are concerned came from Allison. So this is something that is a huge difference between the two movements. We listen to each other. We build on each other's points. We learn from each other. And when we're wrong about something, we fix it. We talk to each other about it. We argue, we hash it out, we look at the facts and the evidence, and we change our minds on things. Feminists have to have an echo chamber, and the echo chamber has to be female. And as long as the men stay in line, they're okay. But if they get out of line, they get whipped back into place. So it's on one hand, yeah, it is women controlling the discourse in feminist movement, even with men speaking up. So yeah, we don't necessarily have to say that it's women defining manhood, but in a way it is.
Well, I'd also say that conceptually there's a big difference. And I'm not saying that Karen wasn't wrong to take us to the mat over this, but conceptually I think we're also asking questions that really relate to a more positive female identity as well. Because it's not just this idea of freeing men, which is very important, and not, maybe freeing is the wrong word, but ensuring that men maintain their liberty and have their liberty returned to them where it was taken, and responsibilities are equally shared, as well as liberties in a free society. But it's this idea of questioning this really, I would consider it, I'm not going to call it toxic femininity, but this toxic approach to regarding your life and your own agency in the world. And it's a way of being a woman, or way of being female, or way of doing feminine, that feminists present as the only acceptable way of being a woman. And that way is reducing yourself down to a victim of anything and everything. So that it's this process of constantly regurgitating your own agency. So it's a mental bulimia. And I've seen it in the women that I have discussions with. For example, the last discussion, she was arguing with me and another person, and at one point I'm like, you know what, this argument isn't even about me anymore, could you untag me? And then she sent a message to me saying, hey, or she's saying something like, oh, well, I don't know why you guys are still arguing with me, why you're still tweeting at me. And I'm like, the last tweet I sent you is requesting you to untag me. And then she said, well, I'm not the one you requested. I'm like, I requested it of both of you because you're the ones having the discussion. And she couldn't take responsibility for her own act of tweeting me. She had to be the victim. I'm watching this woman vomit up the perception of her actions and their consequences. And I'm just thinking, what is the point of living as you? I mean, what is the point of living a life in which you cannot conceive that your actions have consequences? You might as well be in a fucking void. It sounds like such a dreary, dark, dismal existence. And that's what feminists is giving women. And then they're giving them this dreary existence and blaming men for it. And it's like, I will never say that the men's rights aspect of this is not important, but I think that challenging what women or what feminists does to women is equally important for me. Doesn't have to be equally important for other people, but it's equally important for me, because I don't want to see women living that kind of dreary, dismal, mental bulimic life. It's sad, and
It's very important to me too. That's one thing that came out of Cassie Hagg's documentary. She said, talking to men's rights activists about men in the red pill sort of world and reality, made her feel empowered. It had the direct realizing what impact women have on the world made her feel empowered. It makes perfect sense. It's the exact opposite of what feminism does. And it's about time people start realizing that. I mean, Hannah actually shared an article where it was showing that feminists are trying to remove gender dimorphism, meaning differences between genders in the size and sometimes function of certain organs and brain regions. They're trying to remove that from science. So, I mean, feminism is not only hurting men and women, but it's trying to get into science to hurt women, because the very first thing it does, and from personal experience, I know this, that's why I'm so passionate about how much feminism hurts women in particular, as well, of course, as men, but it hurts women because I've experienced it. I've felt it, and the lack of ability to do anything, the complete helplessness, the constant victim complex does not empower. There's no power in being a victim. I'm with you, Allison. I'm very frustrated about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to agree, and for me, it's all connected. I was an anti-feminist before I got involved in the men's rights movement, and you could call me an anti-feminist all the way back to when I was a 13-year-old. You know, I mean, this was something that I've always looked at feminism as a stupid thing, and it's always struck me that you cannot demonize half the population without infantilizing the other half of the population, and that hurts both. And it really sucks because men and women, we were made to have a great relationship, even if we even you know, men and women who aren't sexually attracted to each other, even if we were a world of all gay men and all lesbians, we are still complementary in so many ways. And to tear up and throw away that relationship is one of the stupidest ideas that was ever invented. And so for me, it's always been, I've never really separated the two. Being pro growing up for women is being pro stop abusing men, and being pro stop abusing men necessarily means being pro women growing up.
And I would add to that when we talk about what we think, how to actually woman, first of all, I would like to point out that for the most part, at least there's probably a reason why we're the largest men's rights group channel, or questioner group channel, or whatever you want, badger group channel, whatever the hell we are. And there's in a lot of ways, I think our discourse opens up more to people. The people, they feel like they're opened up to these new concepts, these new ideas. And I think that is what resonates with people. And that says something about the community, that they want to have new concepts. They want to have questions, not necessarily answers. And I would add to that our approach to how men and women is not this kind of adversarial, men have to lose out or women have to lose out. It's not the feminist approach. It's very adversarial. It doesn't recognize this dynamic. But I think that our approach, at least my approach, I can't really speak for everyone here, but my approach is to recognize gender as being part of a dynamic system. Neither, it's fairly out of balance in the West, but it's usually fairly balanced. And the reason why I approach it that way is because of moral typecasting, because we have this tendency to view people as agents or victims. And for both, there's a negative and the positive. For men, they get more people recognize their competency better. For women, they recognize their needs better. And that approach is a dynamic, balanced approach. It's not casting anyone as a villain. Even when we talk about what women are doing wrong, it's in the context of recognizing that they're not given much feedback. I mean, they're basically in a lot of ways in a position. Could you imagine a giant raised by pygmies, and the pygmies always endeavor to make the giant not know that they're a giant. So the giant doesn't know what force it can use. It's never really had proper feedback. I don't think women have completely lacked any kind of proper feedback or understanding what the fuck they're doing. And the reason why I say that is I see it.
Yeah.
I see how their minds are working, because I'm out of that. I can see that they cannot make that connection.
Women have no clue. Women have no clue as to the power that they have.
Yeah, and they're not given any kind of measurement system to have a way of understanding. As the giant lashes out and kills a bunch of pygmies, and the pygmies all drag the bodies away and hide them. And they're like, "Oh no, nothing. You did nothing. You did nothing."
Yeah, no, this is exactly what you see with women who make false accusations, right? And we're supposed to believe Zerlina Maxwell when she says that the consequences of a man being falsely accused are never as bad as the consequences of a woman not being believed when she makes an accusation. And I'm sorry, but that is essentially just telling women that their actions have no effects on others. None.
And you think of the cumulative effect of that on an individual. That means that a woman never actually experiences, in this context, if she's experienced this constant drumbeat of, oh, your actions have no consequences, she doesn't have an individual person at all.
Yeah, no, she's not an effective or an efficacious or effectual human being.
And then feminists get all pissed off about men being confident, and they have no idea why women aren't.
Yeah, and that's what's so freaking it's so mind-numbingly annoying about this, and sort of scary that there are women who sort of buy into this and see it as empowerment, and yet it's the destruction of their own individuality, because you don't know if you cannot connect your decisions, your choices, and your actions to their consequences. You have no concept of yourself as an individual. So yeah, these women, they learn to game the system because they can, and I've seen it, they can go from something happening, their own actions, a consequence of their own actions, to being a victim of the consequence of their own actions in a second. And the only way they can do that is they can literally not see that their actions have a consequence. When their actions consequence comes due, immediately they switch to it being them being a victim of it. And it's like that is a mentality of it's like it must be a mental illness. I mean, I can't even imagine. I just think about what it would be like if I lived a life in which I felt my actions had no consequences. And nothing I could do matters. Everything is just a series of being a victim of shit. And not just that, but if you teach women not to make the connection between their actions and their consequences, how the fuck do they improve their lives? When they have the greatest power, their choices and their actions have the greatest power over their lives. They're constantly going to be their lives are constantly being shit based on some sort of mysterious entity. I wonder what the feminists will call that mysterious entity. That's actually their own frickin' choices, and they can't recognize it because they can't make the connection between their choices and the thing that just hit them in the head. Oh, I'm gonna just punch myself in the head. Oh, who's punching me in the head? Punch myself in the head. Who's punching me in the head? The patriarchy must be doing it. Okay, I'm done.
All right, shall we move on to the next clip?
Unless anybody wants to tell me I'm full of shit.
You're full of shit. Just I don't know. Just on principle. I mean, somebody's gonna say it. I'm gonna beat them to it. Ha! I win. Comment section.
Okay.
What you could do.
But my dad wasn't in my life. A lot of the times I would see my dad, he'd be drunk, but my dad wasn't in my life. When he comes around, he takes you out or whatever. My dad ducked down in the back, son, and he kind of pushed my head down behind the seat. My life. My dad came, basically I was filming in my life, and he didn't bring my son back for 2 days. And after that, I told him that I don't ever want to speak to him again, and I don't want him around in my life. But
okay, this is let's just stop, because Mike pooped this.
He did poop it because
he pooped it quite well.
He did it because a guy contradicted himself. He said he wasn't in my life. And then he went back and talked about the stuff that he did with his father. Yeah. So this is a bit.
Anna,
it's a bit dodgy, Anna. Is what I'm saying.
Well, just real quick,
Anna, your sound is excruciating.
What's going on?
Oh, you're fine
your
now.
Sound is like really, really freaking distorted.
Yeah. Okay, try now.
that is very strange.
Oh, you're
Yeah,
good.
sometimes it happens when you start talking, but for whatever reason, it resolved itself. So go ahead.
Might be a mute issue. I'll check into that. I think a really important point of contradiction there is he starts off with the sort of the assumption that, well, he wasn't in my life because he's a bad person and he's a terrible dad, and he wasn't in my life and he's bad. And then he ends it with saying, so I pushed him out of my life and told him never to come back. So if it's a bad thing that you're suffering from and nobody taught you how to be a man because you didn't have a dad, and then he started being involved in your life and you told him to fuck off forever, how does that make any sense at all whatsoever?
I saw Che Guevara.
What? You did not.
I saw Doge Guevara. I did. I did. You did that. I saw it with my own eyes.
That was not Doge Guevara. That was Fidel Castro.
Okay.
Are you sure that wasn't Justin Castro?
Oh!
Oh my God.
Okay, we're gonna get away from that. Even though I think it's fucking hilarious. So, I'm gonna...
Go to the
think
next
that,
part.
Yeah, I'm skipping to the next bit.
And the
Go to the
best
next
way
time
to
code.
smash the white supremacist
Go there,
patriarch.
Doge. Do it. Mush.
What?
Mush.
Hold on, I'm
Mush,
mushing.
Doge.
I'm mushing.
Mush.
Can you guys not
Mush.
see it?
I think these are the two stories you were brought on to tell, Asha.
Fact of the matter is, I've got a lot of respect for it. I've got a lot more work for it. People believe in me more.
Okay,
as an
wait.
actor.
Just to
Been taken.
We gotta
Can
set
you pause
up.
this for a second?
So yeah, set
we
it up.
gotta set this up. So the two stories that Mike alleges that Asha was brought on to tell was the story that his dad wasn't in his life, even though he apparently was. He was messed up by his dad not being in his life because he did all these things in his life. And also the story of Asha French kissing a man as an actor, and how the black community is homophobic, and actually didn't really he says that the black community is homophobic. Then we found out that he
was warned by, well, he heard some of his heroes like Will Smith and Denzel Washington saying don't ever do a gay scene because the black community will never forgive you. But he did, and apparently they did. So it's all fine.
And he also describes how he just sort of, like when he was kissing the guy, he just went for tongue, and I'm like, wait, what? Just why would that be the automatic thing to do? I mean, if you're doing a kissing scene, doesn't anyway, just I'm gonna.
It sounds a little over the top, right?
Yeah, it sounds like you're. I mean, do you?
I'm gonna do this gay scene with all of my gayness. I'm gonna summon all my gay powers and really, really do the gay scene. Like really, I'm gonna go for broke.
You know how it works with chat shows when there's a famous guest and an interviewer, they talk beforehand and they lay down which anecdotes they're going to talk about. And I'm pretty sure they said something like, yeah, tell that story about how you French kissed that handsome Swedish actor one time.
One of the things that's interesting about this is how they're referring to the black community. Like, all black people have the same opinions.
As a collective, of course.
As a collective. And it's funny because if somebody who is not black does that, all of a sudden they're stereotyping. All of a sudden they're racist for lumping all black people in together. And this is something that, in a way, it's a legitimate complaint. If, you start lumping all of a demographic together and say, oh, they all have the same opinions and they all feel the same way about this particular thing. And we can look at recent political events and quite clearly see that there is no the black community. There's a black population, and there are a variety of opinions within the black population and a variety of different demographics, dramatically different from each other within the black population. But there are people who choose to speak for the entire population and call themselves the black community. And then there are people who like to attribute a particular outlook to the entire population and call it the black community. And this is one of those things.
If you're black and you disagree, then you're a coon or an Uncle Tom, right?
Yeah, I've seen that come out of discussions where one black person calls another black person names that I always thought were racial slurs that were only used by racist white people, that, you know, the dumbest of the dumb that are still racist like that today, that say shit like that. And here it's actually the most I've heard it in my entire life, the most I've heard racial slurs against black people.
Yeah.
It's come from black people who were mad at black people for having the wrong political opinions.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, you know, it's almost like they're not allowed to disagree with each other because of the color of their skin.
So
But you know
like
what?
women-
That's racist.
Um,
You're allowed to disagree with each other. You're allowed to not have the same opinions.
Oh, no. But the whole thing is that you have to have the hive mind. You have to have, and if you diverge from the consensus opinion, then you are a traitor. You have internalized racism. You are the house nigger. That is what you are. Because just like I have internalized misogyny. So do you, Hannah. So do you, Allison. So do you, Anne.
And that's what holds people back, is that mentality that if you're part of a demographic, you can't disagree with other people who are labeled as part of that demographic. You have to have the approved set of opinions that are attributed to that demographic.
I just
And
realized something.
That is one way in which the general public as a whole is kept ignorant and kept from real progress, where we actually learn to live with each other and we actually learn to build on each other's strengths.
I just realized something, Allison.
What?
I am out of touch with my vagina.
Okay.
And my vagina really should be dictating what I think. And
It doesn't already?
well, I had been ignoring it. It had been calling to me and calling to me and
Is this
calling.
like some sort of fucked up naked lunch? Your anus is starting to talk to you?
My
thing?
vagina had been calling to me, and I was ignoring it because
Is
of
that how your knees go so
internalized
soggy?
patriarchy, because of my internalized misogyny, and now hearing you all talk about the Coons, the Uncle Toms, and the house niggers, you have shown me the way. You've shown me how not to be that, how not to be a labia traitor, how not to be a traitor to my gender. And I feel like I have accepted the goddess into my soul. I feel like I know the truth now. And the truth is it's based on feelings, Allison. There are no facts. Facts are subjective. Feelings are all that matters. And I feel a oneness with all vaginas. All of them.
Are the vaginas in the house?
And that's actually getting kind of icky. But I feel a oneness even with her and her vagina. And now I
That
know
sounds like rape,
one
Karen.
thing. Now I know what the right thing to think is and the right thing to feel is. And I'm sorry, but I'm just gonna have to. I will give you guys 5 minutes to convince me, and then I'm gonna have to go.
Okay.
Moving on.
It's pretty hard to follow that.
Hallelujah. Praise the Lord.
Hallelujah.
Praise
Praise
the
the
lady.
vagina.
Praise the lady.
Praise the lady. Well,
What did you realize, Allison?
what I realized was that, well, I called it mental bulimia. I actually think it is almost like, they call it internalized misogyny, right? It's when you actually are able to recognize your own agency, whereas they seem to vomit it up constantly. Like they have bulimia, except it's so psychic bulimia. And they can't even bear to have a single calorie, a single recognition of their agency cross their lips. They're like living on unbuttered air popcorn, and then they vomit.
Yeah, no,
it up
and
too.
their lips don't touch the fork. they kind of scrape the food off, that tiny little morsel of food off with their teeth, and they don't let it touch their lips.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't even fucking get that, but all right.
No, that's what anorexics are like.
Really? I didn't even know
because they
that.
don't want the sensory pleasure. They want as little pleasure from food as possible. They are only eating because they have to do that in order to sustain themselves, and so essentially they eschew any kind of sensory pleasure from eating. So any kind of they just
Actually, technically, the medical diagnosis anorexia is any time that you don't eat enough to sustain yourself based on your metabolism. Because back when I was on steroids for my asthma, I got to a point of hyperactivity where I would forget to eat when I needed to eat, and I would get to a point where I would have a low blood sugar emergency, and then I would be like, oh, hey, I forgot to eat. And anorexic is in my medical record, even though I did not have the mental disorder anorexia. Yeah, so and I have a family, or had a family member who had anorexia nervosa. She took great pleasure in food. She was also bulimic, and she did vomit to purge the calories. And the whole problem wasn't that she didn't want to take pleasure in food, but that she didn't want to put on fat. And she was anorexic specifically because of that. And this is not something that is a standard thing at all.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm sure they all, like people who experience anorexic nervosa and bulimia have different approaches to it. Some don't want to have any of the sensual pleasure of food, and some do, and that's why they're maybe more bulimic, because they want to enjoy it. And
it's essentially, it's an obsessive compulsive type behavior, and those behaviors often stem from different things. So it's not something this is just, it's a need to correct it, because this is something that we don't want to misstate on this, because this affects a lot of people, both sexes.
I think also Karen was going for a metaphor. And
but it's not good to base a metaphor on a mischaracterization.
Anyhow, it wasn't necessarily mischaracterization. It was just essentially defining a entire group by a behavior of a portion of that group. But you guys have not convinced me.
Yeah, go be with the vaginas. Go let them consume you. Bye.
It is 7:00 now, and I must go. I must go be
Where are your children?
I must go be one with the hive vagina. And actually, that's not what I'm doing. I'm going to a business meeting, so.
Yeah, enjoy that.
No, I won't. I won't enjoy it.
Well, then enjoy it anyway, because you don't want to.
Well, okay. The only thing I will enjoy is it will include dinner. And I won't have to wash any dishes. I won't have to cook it, and I won't have to wash any dishes. So.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us, Karen. Enjoy your business dinner.
Have a shitty day.
Or sorry, don't enjoy it.
I won't. I won't enjoy it, and I will let everybody in the vicinity know that I'm not enjoying myself. I promise you.
Okay. Excellent.
All right.
Go be with the vagina. Bye.
Bye.
All right. Okay, so do we want to move on to the next item on the docket?
Well, I wanted to say something about this one before we move on, because I want to address this story directly. I think it's interesting that this man was brought on, and whenever you see these talks and they have a celebrity come on and they tell a bit of their life story, that always makes me extremely suspicious. I mean, I know that there's this. It should be obvious there's cause for suspicion, but it always bugs me because. What would have been great, and I would ask Mike if they did this because I don't know, if they talked to people who actually went, regular men that went to the event and put the mic to them to ask them questions about why they're there. Because when I looked at the video, I saw no mention of, well, I would ask if there was mention of any of these issues: circumcision, male suicide, male homelessness, paternity fraud, divorce, child custody, workplace death, amongst other things. And I'm guessing that if any of those things did come up, it talked about how it's men's fault. Like they're not talking about their feelings enough, they're not acting like women enough, they're not, whatever it is. They're too nervous because they have to act macho because of all this other shit. And so when I know that they're not actually going to address any men's issues at this thing, which I'm not surprised by. I was hoping that, they would surprise me, but they didn't. And then they bring this man out, and he talks about two things, the two stories. One, how his father was not in his life. Two, how brave and courageous he was for playing a gay character in a film despite advice from other men in film to tell him not to do it. And then his example is actually tongue-kissing a man. And my question became, why are those things important? Not, and I know that how they're important in the feminist narrative. I know how it's important in that because to them, they don't really care about men. They don't even really care about gay men. They care about controlling male behavior and using these things that they're essentially accusing men of, which is inborn homophobia and transphobia and racism and white supremacy and so on. And when I look at that and I'm thinking about what he's saying, what this man is saying when he's like, this is what I did to be an actor and I get a lot more respect and I get a lot more work now and all that. And that should be evidence that people actually don't give a shit what he does. But it's being used as evidence as to why this needs to be addressed and talked about. And that makes me wonder. Another thing is, why is it a man has to tongue kiss another man to prove that he's playing a gay character in a film? Now, I'm not saying I have a problem with it. My question is, how is that the defining factor? And does, let's say he was a man that wanted to play a gay character, but he wasn't comfortable with doing that. Why would we then accuse him of homophobia because he didn't want to do it, because he's not actually gay? I mean, would you not do the same thing if a woman was to be in a scene where she had to kiss another woman? And let's say they said, well, we would like you to kiss this other woman. And the female actress was like, well, I'm not comfortable with doing that. Because that does happen. There are female actors and male actors that refuse to do nude scenes. There are female and male actors that refuse to do certain kind of love scenes. There are male and female actors that refuse to do all kinds of things. It's in their contract or whatever. Do we then consider them to be, non-people or worse people for it? And so if this man has decided that he wanted to do this thing, why are we giving him extra praise? What does this have to do with manhood? I question this whole thing because I don't think that their ultimate narrative has nothing to do with any of the stuff that he's talking about, and it has nothing to do with actual male issues. This all feels so phony, and I'm not even halfway through it. That's my 2 cents.
I agree that it's very obvious that it's phony, because here they've got a guy talking about lack of having his father in his life being a problem for him, like being a source of problems for him. And yet when feminists are confronted with the fact that there are people advocating for better balance in custody rights, so that fathers have the ability, even after a divorce, which is not an ideal situation. Divorce is the opposite of an ideal situation. But when that happens, fathers do still want to be part of their children's lives. They do still want to guide their children and raise their children and show their love for their children and be loved by their children. And feminists don't support that. They don't support equal parenting rights following a divorce. They don't support equal custody rights. And I'm sure they don't support equal custody rights if a marriage doesn't happen in the first place. So they're really kind of talking out their ass when they bring some guy on to talk about how damaging it was that his father was not in his life, because they don't want to participate in the solutions to that. And the thing about not being taught to what it's like to be a man because his father was not there, and we don't know, like I said before, we don't know whether that was because his father was some kind of a jerk, whether his father hadn't wanted to be a father and the mother went on to have baby without his consent. and maintain custody without his consent. So we don't know if the guy was a jerk, or if the guy was trapped in that situation, or if the mother kicked him out of the child's life. We don't know any of that. But let's say the scenario was the dad was actually, he promised to be there and then he wasn't. He was the worst jerk that we can think of, and he's not there. He's not the only person that the mother could have brought into this kid's life to be a role model. And if you're a woman in that situation and you are taking responsibility for raising a child, it is your responsibility to see that your child has good role models of both sexes. And if you don't do that,
Triggered.
It's your fault if the child doesn't learn how to be an adult of his sex. And I'm saying this from the perspective of having a close family member whose father during the baby boomer era was really like that. He didn't want to be a dad. He was the Rolling Stone type. He did walk away. And the mother in that case did strive very hard to make up for that. It was a bad choice for her to be with that guy in the first place. And it was a bad choice for her to put her children in that circumstance. And she recognized that, and she worked hard to make sure that her children had good role models. And there were also bad role models in their lives. And she didn't pull any punches when she talked about her mistakes. She said, I made bad choices. This is not a role model. This is a role model. And her kids learned from that. And they grew up to be very solid adults. And this is something that feminists will never understand because of their victim narrative and their narrative that women's actions don't matter, that women's actions don't have effects on other people, that women can allow or cause a relationship to end after the children are born, and after the children are depending on the parents to be there for them and guide them and provide for them and love them and nurture them. That after that happens, these women walk away from their relationships or kick the fathers out of the relationships and move on with their lives, and even involve other men and maybe kick those men out too. That all has an effect. Feminists can't acknowledge that effect. The only thing they know how to do is blame the men. So they will never be able to fix this problem. They will never be able to help men in this situation.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's what I think what it gets to is, my view of this is that this man, I noticed that feminists don't really care about black men or gay men, but they don't have a problem exploiting them to further their own ends. And this is what it feels like. Exploitation. He is being put on display, and he's willingly, he's probably getting paid well or whatever to do it, but he's basically being used, and that's the thing about it. It's just kind of disgusting to me. But let's go on to the next clip before we get too much.
Well, to be fair, I don't think he really was that bothered by the kissing, apparently.
Well, yeah, maybe he's, maybe he's on the down low or something, or it wasn't a big deal. But that's not my point. Isn't that my point? Is not whether or not it bothers him. My point about the kissing thing was asking the question: why is that how we know that he is okay with the existence of gay men? Is by playing one and then engaging in their activity. It reminds me of some of the articles I've seen written for like Slate and The Guardian, things like, guys should give each other blowjobs sometimes because then they might understand the gay struggle or something. Like, it's weird shit that's like, well, what if guys don't want to do that? Well, now they're homophobes. So you don't want to blow a guy, you're a homophobe. Or if you don't want to kiss other men or make out with them, there's something wrong with you. No, maybe a man doesn't want to do that because he doesn't want to do that. Then maybe like telling him that he should or he's not a good person is your problem. not their problem. Because I wouldn't say, well, a woman's not really a woman unless she eats another woman out. I mean, that's what I'm getting from this. And if you're a performer and an actor, I have seen historically that it's not necessary for you to go and do things that you're not comfortable with in order to send a message. So if you wanted to play a gay man, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to kiss another gay man if you don't want to. Now, granted, in his case, he didn't mind, and that's great for him. But what I'm saying is that if another man was in a different film and he didn't do that, but he wanted to play the character, that's also okay, in my opinion. Because it's acting, it's not life. You know, and sometimes people who are in those positions, they have to play these roles, they could feel it's a bit exploitative. And maybe it's not to their taste, and I think that should be okay, as long as all this stuff is about voluntarism at the end of the day. So that was what I was getting at. I wasn't saying that, you know, he should feel bad.
Well, I offer a counter argument after Cherry says what she needs to say?
Yeah, Cherry, go ahead.
Yeah, I just keyed off on something you said where, if you told she's not a real woman if she doesn't eat another woman out, and of course that would be extremely problematic. That kind of very strongly resonated with some of the things we were talking about in the Cherry STEM patron / HBR Skype group, where Karen was mentioning the different genres that appeal to men and women. And it seems that female, at least in my experience, appeals to men a lot in terms of porn, and not specifically written porn, but like visual porn. While male experience is something that appeals to women in written as well as in visual porn. So once again, when you can exploit or objectify two men together and say that you need to suck another man's dick, and that's you're not a man until you try that or whatever, and that's fine because that is the purview of women, that is women's gaze, and that's okay. But then when you say that, well, if a woman's not a woman until she goes down another, that's shock, outrage, that's not okay, because that's the male gaze. Lesbians cater to the male gaze, and gay men sort of cater to the woman gaze, and we have a very strong sense of lack of female. We don't give women credit that they can be predators, that they can be in the same way as men are. So whenever you have anything that can be seen as problematic from the female side, if you apply the same rules to the female side that you do to the male side, it's a huge blind spot. And it was just really interesting that we keep encountering that over and over. These things that people say, that this guy said about what it is being a man, such as, you can't, Mike actually pointed this out. The guy on the screen said that you can't really be taught how to be a man. Well, if we had a conference about, women, and you said something like, oh, you can't be a real woman until you birth a baby or whatever, it would be outrage, it would be scandal. But you can't say these things about men that you can't say about women, and I really wish we would start paying attention to that and trying to be non-hypocritical about our statements about genders.
Okay, what I wanted to say is also taking off of something that Anna Cherry is saying, is she's right. This could be entirely exploitative. Remember, this is a situation where these women consider themselves to be authorities on what is acceptable manhood. That's a very powerful situation that they've accorded themselves, that a man has to behave according to their metric or he's not a man, or he has his identity taken away from him. I mean, you can imagine the reverse, and then these men with women up there are saying, well, you got to perform a particular sex act, or you're not a man as I define the term, or you're not a woman as I define the term. Like Anna was saying, you'd see immediately the predatoriness of that. And there is a predatoriness in this, because she reserves for herself to define what is acceptable behavior in a man, and she is using that power to elicit not necessarily elicit, but to approve of certain sexual behaviors that he may not be comfortable with. Now, he just still consented to this situation. You can't take away his individual autonomy here. But the other thing I wanted to say, and this is where the individual autonomy comes in, if it is just acting, and it's just acting a particular role, then the question becomes, where is the discomfort coming from? because when you're an actor, you're expected to do things that are not necessarily what you want to do and not necessarily physically comfortable. So and I agree that actors and actresses should be able to say that they don't want to do certain things. But if you don't want to do that, perhaps playing a gay role isn't for you, is what I'm getting at. And or alternatively, you play a gay role in which the person was clearly mostly asexual throughout their lives. But if you don't want to play, if you don't want to do aspects of the role, or if you're uncomfortable with aspects of the role that you're being requested to do as an actor, then get a different role, or pass on that particular job. And to have a discomfort with what, I mean, I think what they're getting at with the homophobia thing is that unless there is putting a particular stigma attached to that particular action, then it just becomes another thing that is just something that's asked of an actor. Remember, how is it different than doing a stunt or falling off a roof? These are things that people don't want to do, that they're frightening or unpleasant, and they're a part of being an actor. And again, you can say, I don't fall off roofs, I don't crash through windows, but, and that's fine. Ultimately, you have to have your autonomy respected, or your individual choices, but I can see where they're coming from, too, in terms of the homosexual stigma. If it really is meaningless, or if it just it's just an action that you're taking in the context of your job, what's the issue, essentially?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I think that is worth pondering. I think sometimes there is pressure because for all I know, he just wanted to kickstart his career, is what I got, and then that was his opportunity to do it. And I would imagine that if he is, that he could have had a conflict with that. And then I guess the question comes, if there is a problem, is it coming from, I wouldn't call it homophobia, because I don't think that men that aren't gay are homophobic if they don't want to kiss other men. But I would say
that's the thing. It's not an issue of want. You're just doing a job. That's it.
Yeah.
You don't have to want to do that to do the job. Like, I know I guess it's a little bit prostitution-y, but it's not because you're an actor, it's not a reflection on whether or not you want it.
It's like so many people portray professions that they are not in real life as actors. No, they didn't want to be a doctor, they didn't want to be a lawyer, they didn't want to be a police officer, they didn't want to be whatever, they wanted to be an actor. But they're not phobic if there's some aspect of that profession, say somebody portraying a police officer but who does not do their own stunts in scenes where the police officer's story takes them into dangerous activities, that doesn't make them cop phobic, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they hate cops, and at the same time, people who do their own stunts, that doesn't necessarily make them real cops. It's just a matter of how they do the job and what their capability is. And there is some degree of admiration that an individual should receive, that it's right to admire somebody who does a better job, or who does more of the job, who's willing to endure a degree of discomfort, or who's willing to endure a degree of danger, or threat to themselves, or whatever, whether it's backlash for the thing that they're portraying, or whether it's jumping off of a building onto a mat or onto the big balloon thing that they jump off onto, and doing it themselves instead of having a stunt person do it, and taking the risk that something could go wrong. It's all a moot point, really, when it comes to the profession itself, and whether or not we're talking phobia, and whether or not we're talking acting, and so on. It's just a job. It's
a discussion to have, but like I said, the want really should be taken out of that. And there are things that people don't do because they just, it's not for them. But
Right.
because he didn't do this because he necessarily, although the French kissing would suggest that it wasn't that unpleasant. But that's his own business. But if he had done what was asked for him, it doesn't mean that he wanted, like, it was something that he wanted. It was just something that he did to complete his job. And I mean that is a point. That is a good point. If a guy is portraying a gay man, doesn't make him gay. And if he does actually do the necessary actions to portray the sex life of a gay man, that doesn't make him gay either. And it doesn't mean that he wanted to. It just means that he did it for his craft. The end.
And, it really, one of the other things about this that bugs me, and I think somebody mentioned it in the chat with regards to lesbians, but we hear all the time that it's homophobic if a straight guy doesn't want to engage in an activity that is labeled homosexual activity. But we never hear of it as being heterophobic if a gay man doesn't want to engage in an activity that would be labeled a straight activity. Nobody accuses gay men of being heterophobic for not wanting to kiss women. And it's ridiculous to go the other way around. It's not a phobia and it's not hate to not want to participate in something that you are not.
Yeah.
It's not.
But alternatively, it's also not an issue of want when you're doing it for your job.
Right.
Well, that's kind of what I was. I mean, in many ways, that supports my point. Is if it's not an issue of want because he was just doing the job, and that's just what the job requests of him, and he's not actually homosexual, what does that have to do with men's issues at all? Why would that be something that we needed to point to in this particular talk?
Because it got someone's jills off.
It did?
Well, the interest here, I would sense, is purient.
Mm-hmm.
She just wanted to hear about him macking with an attractive Swedish man.
But they did discuss, this is, as Mike said, and I'm sure they did this, they discussed what anecdotes he was going to bring out before he actually brought out the anecdotes. So they planned what he was going to talk about before he came out. And the two things that he was going to talk about was his fatherless home, which was actually not quite a fatherless home, and the fact that he played a gay man once, despite pressure not to do it.
The reason that they did that is because feminists try to make male gayness a women's issue. Mm-hmm. And they try to do it by likening it to femininity. In other words, the idea that men being with each other is somehow effeminate, which is really stereotyping, really badly stereotyping. I know several very masculine gay men who there is nothing feminine, nothing stereotypically feminine about them at all. And to be honest, I think that society's big objection to gay men has always been that they don't order their lives to benefit women, not that they are like women. But feminists are trying to use the claim that society hates gay men for being like women, which they're not, as something that they can exploit for political gain for women's causes. Oh, look, this is another thing that people hate about femininity. We have to get people to stop hating femininity so they'll stop hurting these men.
Yeah, they want to appropriate homosexuality and make it a feminist issue.
And that's what this was about. It wasn't about anything but appropriation of homosexual issues.
No, I think it was also playing to the crowd, too.
Perhaps.
Because there's a lot of interest in feminist, there's a lot of gay, male erotica going on with the feminist circles. They like that shit.
Look, basically, it's the Being a Male festival, and they want to keep their distance as much as possible from white males. Because they know what a problem white males are, especially, from all the disastrous votes that happened in 2016. It's very much a PC social justice zone. And they don't want to be thought of in any way as propping up the identity of straight white males. because everyone knows those are the bad guys. So any opportunity they can find to be all about the identity of black men and gay men, they'll strike at it. And this, I think, was a twofer.
It just strikes me that their anger towards straight white men, or at least the working class white men that with the Brexit and Trump, it's sort of like their anger of someone who wants to remodel their home and wants a indoor swimming pool 3 stories above their lobby on stilts, and their workman is like, I cannot do that. We literally can. This defies the laws of fucking physics. You gotta make some decisions here. It's either got to go on the ground floor or we got to build up the 3rd floor, but we cannot make a fucking bath or a fucking Olympic-sized swimming pool in the lobby of your mansion on stilts. It's a freaking hazard. It's just that basically these guys are saying, okay, we can't do these vanity projects, these rich liberal vanity projects anymore. We just can't afford them. Could we scale back? And that is what they're convinced is Satan. It's fucking amazing.
When feminists, because we were talking about how there was maybe the point of it was to titillate the audience when he talked about that tongue kissing story. When feminists talk about, I'm sorry if I mute, it actually still comes out on the show because I can't. Muting the actual microphone is the only way to stop it. So I'm sorry for the coughing. When feminists talk about these sort of homosexual fantasies that they have, do they only talk about like really young, hairless, muscular, kind of feminine-looking men, or sort of washboard ab type men that are gay that are into each other, or do they also get into like the hairy Greek, bear types and the leather guys and all of the? Is their version of attractive homosexuality a narrow vision of like Vaseline on the lens type of Brokeback Mountain stuff, or is all the majority of what most gay relationships like more what they want, where you have
of course it's like
people who are into fat guys and people who are into hairy guys.
In my experience, it's always been bears. Like Mercedes actually talks about this. I personally like it. I think women like to see manly men fuck each other, and I don't think they like to see like the lipstick lesbian version of the feminine gay guys together, unless it's Yahweh. Because there's a huge enemy.
Well, that's the female. That's a female perspective.
Yeah, I'm talking about a feminist one, not a female one.
The feminist perspective, though, because they have that narrative that gay men are hated for being like women, is that they have to promote the stereotype of gay men being like women. And it couldn't be further from the truth. Gay men are not like women, and they don't have to be like women to be gay. They just have to love each other. They just that's the only thing that makes you gay, is if your interest is in other men and not in women. And the idea that there's a variety of styles and interests and the types of people that are part of the gay community, which was really more of a population than a community. Just like being black, or just like being white, or just like being part of a religion, there's more of a population than a community. But no, that's the perpetuated stereotype among feminists, is the effeminate gay man that is an imitation woman, and that he's hated for being an imitation woman.
Okay.
And I personally think that men should find that insulting.
But that's not.
That is an insult.
That's not really Brian's question. Brian's question is what particular type of gay men would, and I don't have an answer to that, Brian. I would guess it's a toss-up between Germaine Greer underage twinks and the berryness of berry men.
You know what? It's probably a cognitive dissonance thing with feminists.
Yeah, I'm guessing.
There's what they say and then what's internal. and they
guessing
would not
it's
admit what's internal.
Well,
some sort of
I'll
blood
leave it.
sports between power tops or some shit.
I'll leave it at this because I know that this is getting into the weeds and we still have more clips to get through.
We're not getting through those clips.
No. I'm only going to go through the ones I have on the time thing, which is only a couple more. I would leave it at this. This is why I asked the question. I think that Hannah's onto something because my thing was about whether or not what kind of gay men do feminists find convenient and useful. And so they're also the ones they like. And I think it is what Hannah's saying. It's the ones that are the most like women, the closest to women. And maybe even the ones that are more, like I said, I mentioned muscular, like they have idealized bodies and, but they're thin and they're feminine. And to add to that, and I would also put in when you watch, if you look at television and the entertainment industry, films and so on, when there are gay men in them, they are always the over-the-top, really feminine gay stereotype, almost 90% of the time. And the fact is, actual gay men, because I worked in theater and I worked with a lot of them, they're not like that. I mean, some, very few are, and most of the time, those kinds of gay men are annoying to the majority of gay men because they come in. There is, there's the stereotype, which is the flamer, and then there's most gay men. But when you look at the entertainment industry, there's only one type of gay man that you see, and it's always that stereotype. And I think it's because we have to accept that Hollywood is very feminist, and they use it. They think that it's useful to them. And I know this is less relevant, but my point is, this is why I think they use it because it's convenient and it's not accurate. So the question is, do they actually give a shit about gay men? They don't even want to get to know them. They actually consider them to be privileged. So this means that they are exploiting them. I mean, that's the only thing that it could be. And that's just what I think right now. And you guys can think about that. And I'm sure the comment section will come and get me. But
I want to point something else out too.
Allison,
this is not to demonize the flamer.
No.
But I think that sometimes people fall into that stereotype under pressure, which is unfair because they're basically performing all the time. And it's you don't have to be that way. There's nothing wrong with you if you are. There's nothing wrong with you if you're flamboyant and vivacious and so on. But it's wrong for people to make an individual feel that he should be that way, to be accepted as a gay man. That's it.
Okay. And what I was going to point out is, for the longest time, I couldn't figure out why the feminist movement embraced gay men. Because actually, they've only embraced them so far, because they're now kicking them to the curb. And then I realized gay men pretty much broke the authoritarian family values, not personal family values, but authoritarian family values, stranglehold on the moral landscape of our society by demanding acceptance as having a legitimate lifestyle. And that it was a simple act of political strategizing that they embraced gay men. So gay men really only exist to them as a game piece. Mm-hmm. And now that game piece is pretty much done its job, what do we see? We see them kicking them to the curb as patriarchal oppressors. So, yeah, I would agree with that assessment, Brian, but I think we need to get to those last ones because I'm leaving.
Let's do it.
All right, back to the floor.
Thank you.
Really quick, can I say kudos to Click Accept for getting the under pressure reference?
Doom, 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 doom.
I think you can squit. Oh.
I want to read this.
What's going on here?
We believe that a world where women can fulfill their potential is better for everyone. This totally has stuff that has to do with the men's issues. 1 million of you have joined us at our festival, Women of the World, to help us make this vision real. Last year, the Sunday Times named us one of the top 50 employers for women. Well, we had to start somewhere. What does that have to do with men?
That's not part of the Being Out Festival. That's actually painted on one of the pillars, like, permanently. They got a bunch of them.
So this is just a permanent fixture, I see.
It's little pieces of virtue signal that arty places generally put all over.
Oh, let me skip.
That's one of them.
Let me skip.
And this is their idea of gender equality, helping women fulfill their potential.
Interestingly enough, it's the most probably the most conservative moral framework is that I am a hero saving the damsel. And that's what they do.
Okay.
And not even conservative in the sense of conserving order in society, just basic, primitive, tribalistic, women stay in the cave, yo, right? And when we'll kill the other men that want to come for our women sort of shit. All right,
next bit. This is a bit like the audio is not great here, so we might have to pause and explain what's being said.
Present, but the fact that he wasn't there as much as...
All right, some stats. Let's see how accurate these are.
Paternal leave, and they're saying that...
hold on, I'm just gonna...
Just stop, and we'll read the slide.
Yeah.
76 of those considering having a child said they would consider taking shared parental leave. What's the next slide?
Okay.
He wasn't there as much as...
Financial reasons are listed as the main reason why men don't take shared parental leave. Well, yeah, because they have to pay for their partner taking shared parental leave.
Where are they getting these numbers, though? I have to wonder. Now, I know there's no way to, actually, I guess there's no way to really look it up now. We don't have any blue bucks available, but I just wonder where these numbers are coming from. It's all
the
like...
thing is,
It's all like, men would they feel this way about this. This is what I'm getting from most of these. But go ahead, Hannah.
it makes sense because men in general are more likely to be the breadwinner of a family. They're more likely to take responsibility for earning the amount of money it takes to support that family. So they're more likely to, instead of striving for a safer job or an easier job or a better work-life balance for what they want to do outside of the workplace, they're more likely to sacrifice those things and take a job that pays more per hour or pays a better salary, even if it means that they have to exhaust themselves on a job and come home tired, or even if it means they have to take risks, or even if it means they have to work more hours than their wives do. And so they are less able to afford to take unpaid time off from that job for any reason. So it does make sense that a man would say financial reasons are listed as a main reason why they don't take shared parental leave, because in the U.S., at least, there's not a guarantee that parental leave is paid parental leave. It's generally unpaid. And, your employer's not responsible for you having kids. It may benefit companies to... They're more likely to attract good employees if they offer popular benefits. And if paternity leave becomes a popular thing, then companies may start offering that simply because it's beneficial to them that they're going to get a better class of worker if they can give that as, hey, we offer you this too. But only if they're going to get a good return from those workers. And this is where the problem lies. They have to be able to get back the amount of money that it costs them to pay somebody for 3 weeks or 12 weeks or however many weeks people want to make it standard for paternity leave. That they pay a person that much of their salary, they got to get that much back out of that person in profit for the business to make it worth the business's while worth the business's while to offer that benefit. So I'm not surprised that they get that from men, that they can't afford to take that time off, because men usually are the ones that are sacrificing time at home with their families in order to pay for the things that their families have to have.
Okay, I think that's pretty comprehensive. Maybe we should go to the last one.
Oh, you don't want to look at any more stats?
Not really.
All right, let's.
I don't think these stats are going to elucidate anything more,
right.
Except the condemnation of men's choice. And it's not even men's choice; it's their choice to support their woman's choice.
Fair enough.
Which is just going to be blamed on the man because feminism is exceptional at removing women's actual choices from the matter. An agency.
And they couldn't possibly appreciate that, right? That's the other end of it. here we have feminists saying, well, men say financial reasons are the reasons they can't do this. But they cannot look at it as men make this sacrifice for their wives and children because they love them and they care about them and they're invested in their welfare.
Okay,
That's very honorable. And it's not something that I'm saying, we should make men do this. But when men do this, we damn well ought to appreciate it.
Okay, so this is something that actually might be relevant to our interests. Fewer than 2 in 5 men are aware of and understand shared parental leave. Okay, well, go and inform them. Go do something positive. Or actually, you know what? Don't do something positive, because it's never positive coming from these individuals who want to be able to celebrate a festival of what it is to be a man, what it is to be a man in the feminist estimation.
I should point out that to this audience, the gender pay gap is not a myth. It's not even controversial. It's gospel. It's one of the books of patriarchy, after all.
Yeah, we did. They begin the whole thing with the absolute assertion that there is a patriarchy, there is white supremacy, there is all of the stuff that feminists talk about. That is not up for debate. So now we're going to...
Well, that happened at the beginning of the second day.
Yeah.
I thought it was important, so I put it in right at the beginning of my thing.
Oh, okay. So now that we know this to be an absolute truth that cannot be refuted, let's move on to how we can help men within this framework that it's their fault that all this is happening to them. And how by the way, how do you get to fewer than 2 in 5? Isn't that just 1 in 5? Or 0 in 5? I don't know.
Maybe it's 1.5 and 5.
There's half a man who's not sure.
10,
yeah.
They can't say 1 in 5. That triggers people.
Oh God, let's just finish this.
Okay.
I feel my will to live dying.
But I guess personally, I would defer to my mum because she did. She was at home. The main
trying to skip to the bit.
Yeah, I just like how she says that he defers to his mom. Well, yeah, like every kid.
Yeah, this is great right here. There is a session for the kids. Get them early. How to be a Superman, an interactive session where the men of tomorrow can explore what makes a positive role model, not a manly one, because that's negative, and discuss the changes they would like to see in the world around them, for the women, that is, for boys aged 7 to 10.
By the way, this something I learned on the third day. I think it was Jude Kelly herself who said it. That is the being a man equivalent of the Women of the World Festival's How to Be a Feminist workshops.
Yeah, because they certainly couldn't learn about positive role models from the men in their lives, right?
Well, no, they said that it says only dads allowed, and it's misspelled ALOUD.
Yeah, they're being cute with the title.
Oh, okay. Only dads allowed. Okay, so how to be a Superman? Only dads allowed. Well, still, like. The idea is that these boys have something to live up to. Do the girls have something to live up to? Do they have responsibilities to boys or society that they have to live up to? No, of course not, because girls aren't fucking agents, are they? And, of course, the boys have to be super agents to accommodate that, because we can't maintain the perception that women have no agency without granting men absolute omnipotence and telekinesis and all of the godly powers. All right.
So,
yeah, and if we tell girls they have something to live up to, then feminists will call us misogynists.
So this feminist group created this How to Be a Superman, which basically teaches boys how teaches men to teach their boys how to be positive. Like they would affect the world around them in a good way, because otherwise, we know what men are just sort of pre-programmed to do. And then the same group also has a course or a event or activity for little girls and it's about how to be a feminist. Is that?
Yep.
Oh,
apparently.
Shit. That is terrifying.
They're just encouraging the natural instincts that children have. Boys want to be superheroes and girls want to be feminists.
Yes.
Want to be
Couldn't I see
They want
that?
to be the damsel.
Okay, I'm officially declaring myself a victim of the length of this stream.
Should we just drop it then?
Yeah, let's just fucking drop it. Let's just drop them. Like, just end it right here.
All right, we're gonna drop it. We're gonna end it here. We can't take this anymore. But if you want to see the rest of the video, go to Dr. Randomercam's channel and enjoy the cancer.
So much fucking cancer. I can't believe that this thing is a thing.
This is what feminists think men need. I'm just gonna leave it at that.
It's a fucking festival celebrating the feminist vision of manhood. It's be a man. As if this is the first generation ever to develop the idea that men need to protect and provide for women. First generation. Every other generation prior to this generation, bunch of sociopaths. They saw a woman, they kicked her in the face, raped her, threw her in a gutter, and then they let their dog rape her, and it was just every other generation of men. Horrible men would never have conceived of the idea of protecting and providing for women. Taking responsibility for society for the benefit of all. Oh my God, men never did that until feminism came.
Yeah. Thank God for feminism, I guess. I don't know. Well, I'm getting
You
Go ahead.
You could say I kind of have an epiphany about feminism. Feminism is really the celebration of and the promotion of the idea that men should grow up and women shouldn't. Because if you think about it, the victim narrative, like as a kid, little girls like the idea of the princess and the damsel being rescued by the knight and everything. And then when a woman actually grows up and becomes a woman, like hitting adulthood seems to be more of the status of taking responsibility for your own welfare and for your impact, the actions, the impact of your actions or your inaction on other people. That's sort of the defining thing for me for adulthood. And those are the things that feminists reject. So they're rejecting adulthood for women, and they're demanding adulthood from men to the degree that they actually expect men to be adults for women, to take responsibility for women's welfare over and above women taking responsibility for women's welfare. And if you look back in history, it wasn't always that way. If you look, and it depends on which aspect of society, again, you're looking at. Like women in more urban areas got away with, especially upper class women who could find somebody to support them and not have to support themselves. They got away with being more childish. But if you look at women in poverty, or women who were in pioneer families, and women who were parts of groups that struck out into areas that were not populated and had to fend for themselves, they were adults. They had to be adults to survive. They had to take responsibility for their own welfare and the welfare of their families. They had to take responsibility for the effects of their actions on other people. And that was their freedom. And that's how they became free individuals, even in societies where there weren't really free individuals. That was the degree of freedom they could have. And if feminism is a rejection of all of that, at least modern feminism is a total rejection of all of that. Second wave feminism claimed to embrace that and still rejected it by fronting that victim narrative. And this is what we're looking at here. This is a festival of separating adulthood by gender, so that men must be adults and women must be children.
The world needs Keck.
Yeah, more than ever.
Yes.
Praise Keck.
Keck, we're calling for you. Please accept our sacrifice. This video.
All right, so I guess in the patron after chat you'll go over the rest of the items, or maybe do something on the Keck that we talked about today. I don't know.
Well, I don't know. We'll see. Should be a good time. I'm going to close this out. Meow.